This is an Aprilia Tuareg 660, and it is my new personal motorcycle. It feels so good to say that. It is not a giveaway bike, it's not a loaner bike, it's not a demo bike, it is my motorcycle. And if you guys have been following the channel, I've gone through a crazy ass journey trying to find my next new personal street motorcycle. This is my first plated bike in over 5 years, if you can believe it. I've had the Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled, my venerable, dependable, beautiful bike that I just seemingly can't get rid of for over 5 years now. But this bike entered the fold, and I'm gonna tell you guys how this motorcycle crossed the finish line and ended up in my driveway as my new personal bike. So in today's video, I'll tell you the crazy ass story about how I ended up with this thing. I'll also show you guys my initial thoughts and reactions on board of this bike, leaving away from the dealership, cruising around with it, having some fun. We'll get it back here in the shop, and I'll tell you guys more of the mods and changes I already want to make to this machine and what I'm going to do with it as a new personal motorcycle. So sit back and relax. This one's going to be a long and in-depth video, and if you allow your Papa Yam to indulge a little bit in his own motorcycles, you're in for a treat. Let's start with the insane story of how I got this thing. Those of you who've been following the channel for a while know that I've been on this journey to cull my motorcycle collection. About a year ago, I had 7 bikes in my stable. I had the Daytona race bike, a Ninja 400 race bike, a Husky 501 dirt bike, a KTM 250 motocross bike, a blown up Turbo Hayabusa, a parts Tona that served to give parts to the other Daytona, and of course, my beautiful desert sled. I got on a big minimalism kick and ultimately was like, guys, I just think I want one motorcycle. I'm kind of tired of taking care of 7 different bikes. So I started selling them and giving some away, and I donated the Turbo Hayabusa to Craig over at the Bearded Mechanic, and I was left with one bike, the Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled. I started thinking about, man, maybe I can trade this bike in for a Desert X or a Scrambler 1200 XE or a Tuareg 660 or a BMW S1000 XR. I definitely wanted something tall and crossover-y and something that could do a little bit of everything. Ultimately, my cheap, bastardly senses got the best of me, and because I like saving most of my money and not spending it, I ended up just modifying my desert sled to be a sort of all-rounder. I took it on a big trip to Big Bend earlier this year, and all the mods I did to that bike were a big success, and I thought, mission accomplished. But those of you who ride motorcycles know that when you have the itch to get a new bike, unless you scratch it, you simply cannot exist. So I tested the Tracer 9 GT to see maybe a big touring bike like that would be the right choice for me. Ultimately, it was a little bit too battleship for my taste and didn't really fit my vibe. I kept trying a bunch of different motorcycles. The MT09 SP is the giveaway bike we had a while back. Seemed like a cool option, but I still wanted the ability to kind of dabble a little bit off-road like the Desert Sled can do. I then reached out to AF1 to schedule a test drive on a Tuareg 660. I went on the press launch for this machine back in 2021 in Sardinia, and I remember really liking it. And if I'm being completely honest, for the past couple of years, it seems like the tides have been shifting to me that I'm gonna end up on a middleweight adventure bike. You know, when you look at the stuff I was doing with the Desert Sled, making it tubeless, making it a little more long distance capable, kind of all those little mods, you know, these bikes are set up from the factory that way. So that was kind of the undercurrent where I was like, man, I'm gonna have to get a freaking middleweight ADV, aren't I? So I scheduled a test ride for the Tuareg. I ultimately walked away from the deal because they just wanted to kind of lowball me on the trade-in for the sled. I put the sled up for sale, but I just could never really bring myself to get rid of it. A few months ago, I lobbed out an email to my contact over at Aprilia, a guy called Shane, who actually works for his own marketing agency now, helping the Piaggio group with their marketing efforts. I said, hey, what if we could facilitate some sort of collaboration between Aprilia and Yami Noob? I'm really interested in the Tuareg 660. I almost just bought one at the local dealership. What do you say I get one as a long-term loaner for a little test ride or something like that? And Shane said, why don't we do one better? Why don't we just give you an Aprilia Tuareg 660? And I said, man, after all these years of giving away motorcycles finally, one has come my way. I couldn't believe my luck, and until AF1 actually called me and told me that my Tuareg 660 was ready for pickup, I didn't really think this was gonna happen. But they did call, and I drove over there, and there it was. The Tuareg 660 in the Dakar Podium colorway, looking beautiful as ever. I paid tax and dock fees and walked out with the keys in my hand, and I gotta tell you guys, it was pretty sweet seeing on the bill of sale, the line item for the price of this bike was just crossed out, and it just had a 0, and it said, gift from Piaggio. Pretty sweet. So of course, a big thank you to the Piaggio group for supplying this motorcycle for this channel, but there's two things I want to say really quick. Number one, I love disclosing and being honest with you guys about what the relationships between me and these manufacturers are. And you guys have known that for the vast majority of my time here on YouTube, I have not had any relationship with manufacturers. I buy all of the giveaway bikes, usually at full MSRP, to do whatever I want with and say whatever I want. Now, Aprilia or Piaggio are not telling me to say anything about this motorcycle. In fact, we've not even signed off on any deliverables specifically on types of videos I need to make with this thing. I have carte blanche to do whatever I want with this bike, and that's the only way I'm gonna do it. You guys might remember that I famously or infamously had the Boom BD250 because they tried to send me a contract implying that I would only say positive things about the motorcycle, and I was like, absolutely not. The second thing that makes this deal pretty cool is that I was already interested in the Tuareg 660, so the opportunity to get one for free just makes it all the better. And some of you might be wondering, well, what about the Desert Sled? I still have that bike, and I'm gonna make a whole video comparing those two machines, the Tuareg 660 and the Desert Sled, and kind of talk you through why the Desert Sled is still its own thing, and this doesn't really replace what the Desert Sled does for me. So that's the crazy story of how I ended up with this motorcycle and why I kind of was ushered into the middleweight adventure category. I kind of always knew it was gonna happen. So let's jump over to the GoPro footage and check out my very first ride of this machine, leaving the dealership and having some fun with it. Then we're gonna get this bike back in the shop. I'm gonna talk you guys through some of my favorite features on this bike and what I plan on changing and modifying with this machine, because there's quite a bit. All right, fellas. First new street bike for your Papa Yam in 5 years. Finally picked up a new personal motorcycle. Tuareg 660. It was the right move, right? The optimal choice for the aspiring dad. Certainly way more modern than my sled. Oh, me and this thing, we're gonna be friends. We're gonna be good friends, man. It feels so strange riding a bike and being like, oh wait, it's mine. It's not a giveaway, it's not a loaner bike, it's not a press bike. I haven't bought a street bike in so long. A new bike for me? You know, I ride so many different bikes, but I haven't bought a street bike, an actual street bike for myself in so long. That's pretty good, man. It's so comfortable. The wind protection's really nice. Getting to know the Aprilia and slower speed stuff. So I got the rear ABS and TC disabled, so that means I can slide the rear a little bit, which is nice. And it means I can, whoops, let's go back. Pop little wheelies, which is fun. And this is something I do with all the giveaway bikes, is to just ride them slow speeds, just to figure out what they're all about, you know? This bike has really nice lock to lock. It's really balanced slow speeds, which is exactly what you want from an adventure styled motorcycle. Let's see if we can get one in second. Yeah, you gotta really yank on those bars in second. I think the bike is just awful long, so it doesn't really love it too much. Let's mount up this curb. See the adventure prowess. Ooh, not bad. It's actually like it was designed to do this as opposed to my sled. Look at us conquering the urban environment. It's got such a good amount of poke for a 660. Really nice. Got a great amount of bark, great amount of energy. Let's go ahead and put it back in my individual mode, where I set my throttle response and the engine braking, TC down to the lowest. I think what I'll probably do is, from what I can tell, individual mode's probably going to be my, like, you know, anytime kind of riding, just like, hey, just jump on the bike, go for a quick ride. And then I think if I want to have some fun, off-road is rear disabled and TC disabled. So off-road mode probably is going to be my fun mode, and then I'll just pop back to individual mode and have a nice time. But yeah, super nice to use, slow speeds. I could definitely see myself running some errands with this thing. One thing about these adventure bikes is you really don't get a sense for speed, and you gotta just ride them upright, like total dad mode, because I don't have a lot of buffeting in my face from the wind. Like, you can haul with it, you know, it'll have some fun, but it's hard to gauge the twisty prowess of it. You're a little far away from the front end. You got that long travel suspension at the front, and it just kind of feels like a little vague, you know? Definitely want that quick shifter. And I already noticed I'm definitely gonna do the Brembo RCS 17 or 19 treatment to this thing, for sure. It's got dual discs up front, so I think I'll go for the 17, get that nice and dialed in, remove the ABS at the front. I think it's gonna be really nice, because right now the braking feel is super vague, but it's a stock bike, so kind of to be expected. Like, it has stopping power, I can get the bike stopped, but I just don't like that initial bite. It's not very confidence inspiring. Yeah, not a lot of bite out of that front lever. Different pads, different master. I remember when I swapped it on my sled, it was night and day, because that thing had a super squishy master cylinder from factory. Yeah, it goes. It can party. It's got so much nice pickup off the exit. Super nice off the exit on those corners. I'm riding it so different than I would a sport bike, obviously, because it's not a sport bike, but it's it's like this, you're just sitting on it and just riding it along, man. You barely have to get in the pocket of the body position and all that. You just sit up and just carve it through, trail it in. Like, as long as your braking and throttle inputs are correct, it just does everything it needs to do. It's so cool. Plenty of pickup off the apex. That's so nice, man. And for being an adventure bike with its weight mostly down low, it actually performs really well. I remember this is something that I felt whenever I test rode this bike in Sardinia. We were ripping up those twisties at supermoto levels of pace. Down to the third, we'll cut the inside here. Clean line. Can ride this bike pretty darn fast. What's a braking period? I don't even want to get an exhaust on this thing. It sounds awesome when you open it up. Yeah, you get to freaking hear it. It honks, man. Oh, I don't even want an exhaust on this bike. That's fantastic. And the cool part is, it's versatile, right? Like, I can sit here and just cruise with it. I don't feel like I need to go Mach 10 to have fun with it. I'm getting to use all the gears. I wish the windshield was like retractable down so that I could feel the wind a little bit, because it feels a bit strange to not have any wind on my face. Oh, brother, them clippings. Oh, God, the clippings. But I get some feedback. If I poke my head out more towards the mirror here, I can start to feel a little bit and get my reference point. And in a second here, a little hairpin will keep it wide. So many clippings. But this is a bike that I really want to tour with and take to a track day. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think that'd be hilarious to take this thing touring to a track day. You can carry a lot of brakes. It's pretty good, man. I'm having fun in a lot of different conditions, and that's a big plus to me for this bike. This is very enjoyable. And the fact that I've got plans right now to go scrambling a little bit with it just tells me everything I need to know about this bike, man. It's like, yep, slow speeds, it's cool. Urban commuting, it's cool. Little wheelies and slides, it's cool. Twisty roads, it's cool. And light off-road, it's cool too. What's not to like? It's the jack of all trades, man. The master of none. But with this, look at, you hear that? You guys, I hope you hear that over the GoPro. That is delicious. It's crisp. It's really crisp. You pick it up, it's got this nice crispy throttle. Really nice, look at that. Got a decreasing radius coming up. Down in a second, we'll carry the brakes all the way through. Look at that. And I'm like absolute dad mode with it, just bone upright. This sector's fun. Tightens up a little bit over here to the left. Take second gear. Carry the brakes all the way till about here. Wait for it. Point and shoot. Fourth gear, brakes. Yeah, man, this is great. I got no complaints with this thing in Twisties. It's different, right? Like, it's very different than even the Scrambler, because you're so far away from the front end and you're so kind of tall and upright, and the weight is distributed very differently than even the Scrambler. All the weight's down low. The fuel pods are real nice and low, so it behaves super different, but I can tell it's got a lot of grip, even through these Pirelli Rally Scorpions, which is the same tire I use on my sled, so I've got a lot of familiarity with the grip characteristics of this tire and what they do. But it, man, it flicks in pretty freaking fast for an adventure bike, and it holds a line really well. See, we had to adjust it a little bit for that gentleman walking on the side of the road. Down into third, carry the brakes, pick it up right here. Look at that, it's beautiful. And just honking away, what an engine. Man, I'm stoked this bike is mine. I get to ride this thing whenever I want. That is so awesome. And look at this, look at the torque you have, fifth gear, up this hill. It's just chugging away. Look at that. Stand up. Oh, it's nice to stand up on this thing. Bars are nice and tall, nice and wide. Oh, yeah. I'm frustrated that the middleweight ADV was the bike I wanted all along. I've known since like 2021 that this is the proper package. That this is the right combination for me as a rider, for what I like to do on the street. I've known, but I've been fighting it, guys. I've been fighting it, and honestly, since becoming a dad, I think that's it. I've just realized, I'm like, who the heck cares? Who cares? Who cares what some stupid squid on YouTube says about my adventure bike? Who cares? So I tell you what, this super squid will outrun any of y'all on a twisty road on this ADV bike. I'll tell you that right now. Y'all ain't gonna keep up. You go see my taillights for a couple corners and that's it, baby. I'm gonna turn this thing into off-road mode, back it into corners, and you ain't never gonna see me again. All right, we gotta test the off-road prowess, right? Oop, neutral. Some prowess there, Yam. I mean, this is exactly the kind of off-roading I would do with this bike anyways. Like, I'm not gonna go and take this thing out to like some gnarly ass single track. It's not even fun to do that, but you know, a little twin track, a little forest road. I'm definitely gonna travel with this thing and try to find some stuff like this. Let's go ahead and get it pivoted, shall we? It's nice. Yeah, I remember when I rode this in Sardinia, we did some gravel stuff like this. Oh, look at this, the 21. Oh my God, it just rolls over stuff. Oh, that's nice. That's a big old difference over the sled. It's almost like the geometry and the wheels are designed to do this. The sled is like off-roading on hard mode, man. It's got a 180 out back, so this is more narrow in the rear. It cuts through ruts and rocks a little bit easier, doesn't kick out as much. The front end is just a lot more dialed in, way more plush. And look, over this like baby head stuff, I'm not really struggling that much. Struggling a teensy bit, but not too much. Kind of muddy here. Picks it up. Yeah, I mean, a 21 at the front makes a humongous difference. I remember when I started riding dual sports and stuff in 2020, like the DRZ 400 we did. Shit, that was 2019 actually. You know, it makes a big difference. Check this out, just a little slide action. Let's get a little bit right here. Adventure bikes like wide open, gravel, rocky, dirty kind of stuff. No tight single tracks. None of that, please. We don't want that. Rear ABS turned off and no TC, which means we can pivot the bike a little bit. No problem. Look at it floating over this stuff. Look at it, it just fucking floats over it. It's awesome. This is a Kawasaki Ninja 500 SE, and it could be yours if you become a member over on yammynoob.co. I give away motorcycles all the time. I've given away over 53 bikes at this point, valued at well over $500,000. We've done top-of-the-line bikes, beginner bikes, crazy scramblers, all kinds of things in between, and this new Ninja 500 SE is the new bike we have to give away. Become a member over at yammynoob.co and rack up your chances to win this motorcycle. It could end up in your driveway. All right, quick walkthrough on the Tuareg, some of my favorite features on it. I really dig the look of this bike. I think it looks super snazzy in the Dakar Podium colorway. The red frame, to me, so cool. Reminds me a lot of my desert sled. Really like that. The spoked wheels with the spokes outside. You guys can see that there. Tubeless setup, really cool. I do like the call out to the suspension travel, 240 millimeter. That's kind of neat. Yeah, didn't have to do that, but it looks pretty cool. The parallel twin is just a gem in this bike. You guys know I've sang this thing's praises in the RS660 and the Tuono, and I love the configuration in the Tuareg. I honestly think this fits best in this motorcycle over the RS660, over the other ones. It just works super well. I really love the kind of long dirt bike style seat. You have lots of movement that you can put on the motorcycle. You can really work your way around this thing. Really simple and intuitive dashboard and cockpit as well on this bike. Love that. We may end up doing some suspension mods on this thing, but I think stock for stock, it works pretty damn good. It's fully adjustable from the factory. I have to dial in my settings to my liking. I've gotten a little lazy, but I just got to get the preload dialed in and get a couple other things working on this motorcycle. But it's just an incredibly complete package. I believe it makes a little over 80 horsepower, or right around 80 horsepower, maybe it's 85. But it feels way zestier than that. You know, even though it's a 660, a 659cc parallel twin, it moves pretty darn good. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Another thing I really love is the fact that this motorcycle has most of the exhaust muffling done right here. So if you wanted to hear this thing bark pretty good, just get a new slip on and you're ready to go. So I might do that. Little rubber inserts to pop out, get a little more grip off-road. Nice oversized rear brake lever right here. This little pedal is really nice. Adjustable as well too, which is cool. And yeah, honestly, to me, it bothers me that one of the biggest reasons that people don't get this bike is that it has this perception of being unreliable, but I've seen nothing but good things about this bike online. Sure, you always get one or two that have a couple of issues, but you know, I think for the value that you're getting, you know, this bike MSRP is a little over $12,000. It's a lot of bike for the money. And it's kind of the sleeper hit in the middleweight adventure category, in my opinion. All right, let's talk through changes and mods I'm gonna make to this machine. I think I've put about 500 miles on this bike, so it's enough time for me to really feel like, okay, like, what am I gonna change? What am I gonna swap? I'm a real stickler for brakes, so immediately, I'm probably gonna swap in a different pad and get an RCS 15 master cylinder, see how that feels. If I don't like that, I will go direct lines from the master to the calipers and get that dialed in. It is so important to me to have perfect brake feel. I did that on my desert sled and it was a game changer, and I've done that on every race bike I've ever had. So the exhaust. I honestly think it sounds really cool stock. It has this great intake sound. I don't really feel like I'm missing a whole lot. Cruising around, it's maybe a teensy bit quiet for my liking, but maybe I'm just getting older, but I like being a little stealth with my motorcycles and not bothering everybody around me. And if I get enough of an intake honk when I can get on this thing, when I'm out there in the middle of nowhere, I think that's gonna be good enough for me. But I also really like the fact that if I just keep it stock, number one, it's cheaper, and number two, I'm not messing around with air to fuel ratios. The bike's just working exactly as the engineers intended it to, and it's gonna increase the longevity of the machine as well. So I'm honestly not really that keen on getting a new exhaust, and just so that it sounds a little louder and flashing it and voiding the warranty and doing all that. I don't know, just getting a little older might just be my thing. I certainly want real bark busters. Those plastic ones are a little chintzy for my liking. I might have to cut it out to fit a new shape for the RCS 15. I definitely want some sort of lockable and removable pannier and luggage system. I haven't decided if I'm gonna do a soft luggage system, if I'm gonna do just one on one side, if I'm gonna do two, a top box. But this type of motorcycle, especially considering the fact that I'm going to be taking it on long distances and I need the ability to store some extra luggage, some change of clothes, and some, you know, tire repair kits, those sort of things. I'm thinking one soft luggage here on the side would be fine. I think that would work just great. It's got plenty of fuel capacity, so I don't need to take extra fuel with me. I'm not gonna be riding in a situation where I need 300 miles of range and I'm never gonna see anybody. Like, that's not the type of trips I wanna take anyways with this thing. In terms of the seat, it's really comfortable for up to at least 5 hours from what I've found. I have a sheepskin that I can chuck onto this thing, and if I'm gonna do big distance, that'll be totally fine. I don't need to get a comfort seat on this bike at all. For sure, I need to set up the suspension on this motorcycle. I have a preload adjustment tool that I use to set the sag for the rear shock, and then I'm gonna dial in the settings for rebound and compression front and rear. I'm gonna see how that feels off-road and on-road, and if I'm happy with it, I'm cool with it. I ran my stock suspension on my desert sled for years, and if you're not tracking the thing, which is an adventure bike, you don't really need to. And I'm not gonna be taking it on super gnarly tracks, so I don't need crazy, you know, action from the suspension. I think I'm gonna be just fine. People don't like to hear this, but honestly, your stock equipment can be worked with for a lot of riders. It's like, people like to think that it's like, oh, you gotta immediately take out all that crap suspension out. It's like, you know, maybe you check your riding technique first and then see what you really need. So I'm happy with it. I'm just gonna dial it in a little bit. The windshield is something that I wanna change a lot. I need something a little lower on this machine. I'm not getting enough airflow to my chin and my face, and I feel like I'm like in this weird hot bubble a lot of the times I'm riding the bike. So I'm gonna see if I can find something a little bit lower, but that still provides a little bit of chest protection, because it is nice for a longer trip to have that extra chest protection, but I do want something a little lower, and I think that'd make it a little more fun. I have a really long iPhone cable that's routing right now. It's not a permanent solution. I just need a shorter cable to charge up my phone to mount up on the Rockform mount. I think it's not too cluttered of a look right now with the tire PSI readout and my phone. I think I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's okay. The phone mount for me is essential if I'm gonna be doing a long ride for navigation purposes. Then I have a couple tweaks here and there I wanna do for my personal gear that I might show you guys later on, especially for longer distances. I have a pretty good 4-season jacket that has removable layers and those sort of things. I need to tighten up a couple of things on my bags, but overall, it's a pretty workable setup. And of course, the big question is, where am I gonna take it on my first big trip? And I don't know yet. We're actually just coming into winter, and so it might not be the best time to do some of the rides I was thinking of doing. I really wanted to take this thing all the way to Colorado and do some of the trails out there and some of the twisties. But obviously coming into the winter season, that's not the right time of year to do it. So this may just be a suburban assault vehicle for a little bit while I figure out a great route to do with it. But guys, I am beyond excited with this machine. I'm really excited to show you guys more about this motorcycle. Super happy for the opportunity to have this thing with Piaggio and Aprilia. And I'm just really stoked that I got the bike I was really looking for. Man, this thing's awesome. So thanks so much for checking out today's video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.
Oh, I love being here inside of the warm embryonic fluid of Valentino Rossi. Me and him just sharing foods together. Maybe he's gonna eat some pizza or some pasta here in the hills of Tavullia. But you know where else it's nice and warm and cozy is this next episode of Yami Noob you can click on right over here. I'd love for you to watch it. But anyways, I'm gonna stay here hanging out. Me and him might go onto the track later, but I'll catch you guys later.